Before introducing these guests, a couple of things I would like to say. First of all, I would like to thank the corporate sponsors that we have. Their banners are on the back wall. Sioux Valley Health System and Burger King have been gracious benefactors of this. This is the second year for that, and we are indebted to them for their continuing support of this most worthwhile South Dakota activity. I would also like to say that all of our inductees and those that are being inducted this evening, in the arena lobby is where we have very nice plaques, a big granite slab that is engraved with all of the names of the inductees, and last year we weren't able to get in there, but that happens to be open tonight, so if any of you would like to wander down the hall and take a look, please take time to do that. And I would like to introduce one special guest that we have. He is not in the South Dakota Sports Hall of Fame, but I know that in a lot of our hearts, he is in the South Dakota Political Hall of Fame. Jim Abner is a guest here tonight. Jim, would you please stand? Jim came from Florida to be a part of this tonight, and those of you who know him or of him know how much he supported and appreciated South Dakota sports of all kinds. So, Jim, it's great to have you here. I will make these introductions in alphabetical order. I hope I have not, and we have not missed anybody. If we have, if I have, make sure you tell me. First one that I would like to introduce is Howard Connors. Howard, where are you? Give him a wave. Howard was the first official that was elected to the South Dakota Basketball Coaches Association Hall of Fame. He was a longtime official, a longtime member of the faculty at the University of South Dakota. Played professional baseball. Lolly Forsyth. Lolly is from Canton and South Dakota State University graduate, was the head gymnastics coach for 19 years in Sioux Falls, leading Lincoln High School to 7 state titles, Washington High to 4, and was the first woman inducted into the South Dakota High School Coaches Athletic Hall of Fame. Gordy Fosness. Presho native, attended Dakota Wesleyan, came back and was the head basketball coach at DWU for 22 seasons, won 11 conference titles, and he's in the NAIA Hall of Fame. Dave Gassman. Dave was a recent inductee. In fact, he was inducted last year. His name is associated with amateur baseball in South Dakota. He's won more games and struck out more guys, and I don't know if he's still playing or not, but I think he probably still could. Clyde Hagan. A couple years ago for Clyde. Clyde was a multi-sport athlete at Webster, moved on to South Dakota State. A couple years ago, he told an interesting story about how he was recruited by Jim Marking, and I'm not going to go into that. Garney Henley. Garney makes a regular appearance here. Great to have Garney here. Garney was, in fact, I met he and several other people in 1954 when Garney was playing for Hayti in the Aberdeen Civic Arena when they won a championship. The history of Garney, he went on to here in college, went on to play Canadian football. He's in the Canadian Football Hall of Fame, and I mean, he's one of the greats. We've got a lot of them that way. Gail Hoover. Gail. Washington High School and Sioux Falls College. Was the first South Dakota college player to score 2,000 career points. He then coached at Parker for 34 years and left as the winningest coach in B basketball. That record has since been passed, but what a record to win all those basketball games. A legend in our area. Jim Iverson. Jim. He was one of the all-time great basketball players in South Dakota. He led Platte to 4 straight state beat tournament appearances, then went on to play at Kansas State before returning to South Dakota, where he coached South Dakota State to the 1963 NCAA College Division Basketball Championship. Jeff Lemaire. Jeff was inducted a year ago. He was a master at the Golden Gloves. He was in 6 consecutive Golden Gloves tournaments. He is one of those people, as he told me, he said he introduced Sugar Ray Leonard to the seat of his pants. He boxed 3 world champions in his time, and in each case, he lost split decisions to all of those. South Dakota great boxer. Don Lindner. Don is a 1949 graduate of Goodwin High School. How many of you know where Goodwin High School is? Yeah, okay. If you'd like to find out, talk to Don afterward. He attended South Dakota State. His career includes 37 years of sports editing at the Rapid City Journal, where he was South Dakota Sportsman of the Year, Sports Writer of the Year 11 times. Ed Livingston. Representing Ed Livingston is our usual guest, Wendell Elliott, who is the son-in-law of Ed Livingston. Ed was a Washington High and University of South Dakota graduate, became one of the state's most famous basketball and football officials, working 15 consecutive state A tournaments. He also was the active club pro at Elmwood for 14 years and Minnehaha Country Club from 1944 until his death in 1964. Steady Eddie. Jim Markey. A Parkston native who attended South Dakota State. Marking coached State B championship team in Hayti, a Class A championship team at Watertown, and guided South Dakota State to 4 North Central Conference titles. Billy Mills. Great to see Billy. His picture, which I think is one of the famous pictures of all, as far as South Dakota athletics is concerned, graces the cover of our program on an annual basis. He's a legend. He's a legend not only in South Dakota, but all around us. And for him to come back to South Dakota and the things that he does for young people is just unparalleled. Billy, we're pleased to have you back with us. Hod Nielsen. He's a Yankton High School and USD graduate. He's chronicled sports in South Dakota since 1950 and is one of the founders of the South Dakota Sports Hall of Fame. He's been a South Dakota Sportscaster of the Year once and South Dakota Sports Writer of the Year 3 times. Hobie Richards. Representing Hobie tonight is Sydney here? Where are you, Sydney? Okay. Hobie was a Aberdeen Central and Northern State graduate, one of the top golfers in the state, and became an outstanding golf teacher. First at Webster and then at Huron, where he was the pro at the Huron Country Club from 1958 until he retired in 1981. Sydney Sturdivant is his granddaughter. We're pleased to have you here, Sydney. Joe Robbie. Representing Joe tonight is his son, Paul. Is Paul here? Well, anyway, we know about Joe Robbie. Assistant high school and Northern State graduate who earned a law degree at USD. Robbie was the owner of the Miami Dolphins from 1966 until his death in 1990. John Simcoe. Get out there where we can see your honor. John is a 1957 graduate of Sioux Falls, Washington. He's the only South Dakotan to win state high school tennis titles 4 years in a row in singles and doubles. In his senior year, he won state titles in tennis, track, and the high hurdles on the same day in Mitchell. In addition to tennis, was an all-conference receiver on Augustana's conference championship football team and was drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Marv Sherrill. Marv was inducted last year. Marv is a longtime coach of wrestling at Watertown High School, where he had uncanny success in producing champions, not only individuals, but team champions. And he told me tonight that he's back in coaching and he's working with some, is it middle school golf, Marv? High school golf. And he found a person that was going to be pretty much on the same level of his golf playing ability, because one of the girls came up and had 2 clubs and said, "Which one of these is the putter?" Jim Sutton. Mr. Sweetness with the jump shot. There isn't anybody could shoot the basketball like Jim Sutton, a legendary shooter. He started at Oneida High School in South Dakota State. He has become one of the leaders of the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association. He earned all NCC honors at South Dakota State in 1956 and 57 and was drafted by the Minneapolis Lakers. Rex Sweat. Every year when I see Rex, I wonder, now what is he going to tell me about as far as his accomplishments are concerned? What he did to get himself into this Hall of Fame speak for themselves. But every year he wants to add just a little bit more to the story. A couple of years ago, in fact it was last year, he was the national 9-ball pool player in the country. Last year. This year, he tells me that he didn't win a championship, but he was in the top 5 of an 8-ball tournament. Rex Sweat was a native from Huron. He attended Nebraska. He led Huron to a 22-0 record en route to the 1958 state title, and he started 3 seasons in baseball and basketball at Nebraska. Did I miss anybody? Bob Winter. I've got that too here, Bob. I'm sorry. I've got that right here. No, it's not all right. Bob Winter, I don't have to make it up. Bob Winter's name is synonymous with basketball success at Yankton High School. His boys' teams won, was it one state champion, Bob? And his girls' teams won a whole bunch, and he turned out some absolutely unbelievable athletes that have gone on to compete on the Division I level. Bob Winter is the athletic director currently at Yankton High School. Did I miss anybody? Ladies and gentlemen, each time when I have the distinct opportunity to and pleasure to introduce these people, I feel that I am talking about the legends of South Dakota sport. You know, our state has been graced and blessed with wonderful people that have participated, that have coached, that have contributed to the success of thousands of athletes. And they have provided words in papers and on the news media that we have listened to and have been enlightened through the years with the expertise that they have. Let's give all of these inductees another nice round of applause.
Indy Titterington. Born on the 4th of July in 1912, the Yankton golfer won 5 state women's amateur titles and was runner-up 4 times. The Fairmont, Minnesota high grad was the champion in 1956, 59, 60, 62, and 67, and runner-up in 1955, 57, 65, and 68. In 10 state tourneys, she never finished lower than 3rd. It's an impressive feat, especially for someone who didn't play in the state tournament until after age 40. Titterington was the state's Independent Athlete of the Year in 1962. She was inducted into the South Dakota Golf Association Hall of Fame in 1982. Her father had been a club pro and club maker in Scotland at St. Andrews and Royal St. George. She began her golfing career in Minnesota at age 13. At 21, she was runner-up in the Minnesota State Women's Amateur Tourney. After moving to Iowa, she was twice runner-up in that state's tourney. She set an Iowa tourney record with a 3-under par 76 in 1938.
Representing Indy is Toots Marchand. And it's ironic that a guy that couldn't quit blowing a whistle would give it to Toots, Colin Capitan. Toots.
First off, I would like to thank the directors and the committee for bestowing this honor on my sister, Indy. A special thank you to Ron Huffman for his phone calls and letters in helping me collect the needed write-ups and photos for the publications. My sister Indy, the golfer. Oh, how she loved the game. I'm sure it won't come as a surprise to you, but her favorite of all was the match play tourneys. She'd say, Toots, there is nothing like walking down a beautiful green fairway, side by side with your opponent, knowing this hole could win or eliminate you from the tourney. The excitement at times was overwhelming, but let me tell you, folks, that's what she loved about match play. When Indy was inducted into the South Dakota Golf Hall of Fame, the ladies at the Hillcrest Country Club had a roast in her honor. This is some of their comments. It had been rumored when Indy was 13, her tee shot went into the rough, and she found it to be a very unpleasant place to be. And it has been said and verified, she never went there again. During her school days, she was known as the only student to skip school to take golf lessons. Indy, being a very good housewife, planned all her meals in advance. Of course, she did it between nines. I will leave you with some of Indy's own words. Independence Titterington, that's quite a name. How are they going to fit all that into just one Hall of Fame?
John Diefendorf, the 1946 Irene High grad, was named Mr. Basketball in South Dakota for the first half of the 20th century. By the time he graduated from the University of South Dakota in 1950, he owned or shared 5 North Central Conference records and 7 USD records. A 4-year starter, Diefendorf was a 3-time All-NCC performer and led the league in scoring in 1949 and 1950. The 5'11 forward set NCC records for points in a game and season, field goals in a game and season, and scoring average in a season. He set school records for points in a game with 39 and scoring average in a season, 20.4. He also set records for points in a season and career, field goals in a game and season, and free throws in a season. He played on USD's 1947-48 team that pulled off one of the great upsets of all time, defeating Bradley, the top-ranked major college team. Following graduation, Diefendorf was invited to a tryout with the Minneapolis Lakers. And representing Mr. Diefendorf is his son Tom, and presenting is Scott Fiddler.
They told me I had to say something, so here goes. On behalf of the Diefendorf family, we want to thank the Hall of Fame committee for this great honor. For those of you who did not know John, he was a man of few words. So few of words that he did not tell us of his many accomplishments and honors. We were quite surprised and amazed at some of his accomplishments while playing at USD and at Irene. When we were preparing this bio, we found out a lot of things that he had never told us. I travel a lot in my profession and I see a lot of people. And there's been many a time when I introduce myself or say my name, and they ask me, "Are you related to Johnny Diefendorf?" All I can do is smile and say yes. These points just really hit home just last Sunday in church. A close family friend, somebody I had known for over 30 years, told me that as a youngster, she went to a USD game by herself to see Johnny Diefendorf play basketball, because that was all the rage at that time. In closing, the first time I ever met my future father-in-law, the first thing he said to me after punching me in the arm was, "Did you ever see your dad play college basketball?" Now think about that for a minute, and you can understand why I was a little bit speechless. Now I can only say I wish I did. Again, thank you.
It is 8:24, time for Hilson on Sports, brought to you this morning by the Upper Missouri Trading Company. Good morning.
Norm Hilson. The sports director at WNEX Radio in Yankton, from 1956 until his death, Norm was the voice of the South Dakota State Jackrabbits for most of his career. He did countless broadcasts of high school sporting events, and he even did play-by-play of University of South Dakota games for a short time. 5 times he was named South Dakota Sportscaster of the Year, including being the first person to win the Coaches Association's version of the award. Norm was the first sportscaster elected to the North Central Conference Hall of Fame. A 1946 Knox, North Dakota high school graduate and 1953 Brown Institute of Broadcasting grad, Hilson worked briefly in radio at Fergus Falls, Minnesota and Fairmont, Minnesota before joining WNAX. In addition to his play-by-play duties, he also did several daily sports shows, popularly known as Hilson on Sports. Despite offers from bigger markets, Norm loved South Dakota and South Dakota sports, and always decided to stay.
Second down, 6 yards to go for the Pokes, and keeping the football. There's an awful big hole out here.
Representing Norm tonight is his son Chris, and longtime Norm Hilson ally, and the guy that probably made him who he was, Sports Information Director at South Dakota State, Ron Lenz, will present.
This is going to be tough after seeing that. I miss my dad terribly, but This is such an honor. I can't describe what this means for our family and to me personally. I grew up admiring my father not just as a broadcaster, and not to blow his horn too much, but I thought he was one of the best sportscasters I ever heard. It is true he got offers from bigger markets. One I remember in particular in Chicago. And he really had to struggle with that decision. But he did stay because he did love South Dakota. He loved South Dakota sports. He loved being around student athletes, coaches, and yes, Cappy, even officials. And he was just as happy in a heated or air-conditioned press box in a major college as he was doing a game in the back of a truck in a driving rainstorm in Bloomfield, Nebraska. He loved what he did. He did it with a lot of dedication and a lot of class, I thought. And there's a line from the movie Field of Dreams where Kevin Costner asks his father, who he is seeing again, "Is there a heaven?" And he replies, "Yes, there's a heaven. It's where dreams come true." So I know that my dad right now is doing a basketball game with his best friend in broadcasting, Tom Maxwell. Lee Colburn is the leading scorer. Stan Marshall's the athletic director. And my mom, as always, is waiting patiently for him to come home. Again, I can't express what an honor this is to have my dad alongside these legendary sports figures from South Dakota. And from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of my entire family, I thank you very much.
Keith "Doc" Fitzpatrick. The father of athletic training in South Dakota, Fitzpatrick has been an athletic trainer, physical therapist for more than 50 years. A graduate of Sioux City Trinity High, Morningside College, and the University of Iowa Physical Therapy School, Fitzpatrick came to Mitchell as a physical therapist in 1955. Beginning in 1957, he also served as the athletic trainer for Notre Dame High School in Mitchell. In 1970, he became head athletic trainer at Mitchell High, continuing until 1992. He has treated thousands of athletes across the state. For years, he treated athletes at the hospital for free. At 79, he is the oldest active physical therapist in the state. He started the student trainer program at Mitchell High. He is a charter member of both the State Athletic Trainers Association and the Physical Therapy Association. He was interviewed to be the first athletic trainer of the Minnesota Vikings. And presenting for the committee is Tim Smith from Mitchell. Keith "Doc" Fitzpatrick.
Athletic trainers are usually not in a line like this. They're usually on the sidelines or in the background someplace. So really, this is not my line. The only claim to excellence I have in athletics is the fact that I taped Mike Skinny Miller's ankles for 5 years. When Tim Smith called me a couple of months ago that I was being considered for the South Dakota Sports Hall of Fame, I was, of course, elated and kind of dumbfounded at the same time. And I couldn't really figure out why. I thought about it a couple, 3 weeks, and finally decided 2 whys. The first one is that I sat on the same bench with Coach Munchen for 35 years and told him who to play. The second why is that when somebody got hurt, The smoke all cleared, and everything was close back to normal. And the first thing that I could hear was him saying, "Can you play? Can you play?" But seriously, it was great fun. I enjoyed it. And I'm really going to miss it since this is my first year of retirement from the high school level. The high school athlete has been the greater part of my life, and so I feel very proud and very humbled to accept this award. Also, I would like to thank at this time all my student trainers over the years for their hard work and dedication. I would also like to thank my beloved wife, Shirley, God rest her soul, and my family for putting up with my time away from them so I could pursue my love for the athlete and athletic training. Thank you.
Andy Zephier. The 1949 Flandreau Public High grad made the Flandreau Indian School one of the most successful cross-country programs in the state. A 1957 Augustana graduate, Zephier coached and taught at the Flandreau Indian School for 33 years, from 1957 to 1990. His cross-country teams, competing against the biggest schools in the state, won 7 state championships, all in the 60s, and the Indians were runner-up 4 times in his 17 years as coach. Andy's 1962 track team was state champ, snapping Washington High's streak of 9 straight titles. The Flandreau Indian School did so with only 7 boys on the team. Zephier coached track for 12 years and basketball for 15. Twice his basketball teams played in the state A tourney. In high school, Zephier was a Class B All-State player in 1948, and he also played at Augustana.
Believe it or not, this isn't the only job I have. One other job that I do have is to be the MC of the Augustana Sports Hall of Fame. So this is the second time that I've introduced Andy into a Hall of Fame. And also, it's great that we now have A to Z covered in the South Dakota Sports Hall of Fame. Presenting for Andy Zephier is Glenn Peterson.
First of all, I'd like to thank all my family and my wife's family for being in attendance tonight. I appreciate that very much. My family has participated in athletics, and most of them have been pretty successful in their endeavors. For example, one grandson recently won the Class A basketball championship for Flandreau. And just this past year, my sister's 2 grandsons won the Class A championship for St. Thomas, or St. Thomas More in Rapid City. So we have been fortunate in our endeavors in athletics. My granddaughters, I have 3, I think, have done pretty well in athletics also. And watch out, boys, they're catching up to us very fast. My first wife, Ramona, had a sister by the name of Corrine, who was married to a gentleman named Sidney Mills. And Sidney Mills is the brother of Billy Mills. So Billy is a part of my extended family. Welcome home, Billy. I'd like to thank the advisory board, the selection committee, board of directors for this honor of being inducted into the Sports Hall of Fame. My wife asked me how I slept last night. I'm like that little guy on TV whose folks are taking him to Kissimmee theme park, and he goes into his sister's room. Mother comes in and says, "You better go to sleep." "I can't, I'm too excited." I look at the list of inductees, and I know a lot of them, and many I competed against in the various sports. So thank you for the privilege afforded me to be a part of such an elite group. I came from a large family of 10. My folks, of course, were both Native Americans, but they did not raise us in the traditional Native American ways. They didn't teach us language, we didn't go to powwows, we didn't do anything like that. So when I got a job at the Flanders Indian School teaching Indians or coaching Indians, I thought, wow, do I go back to the traditional ways to help coach these or teach these Indian kids? It'll help us in various ways? No, I said, I'm too old. So I just taught them the rules and regulations of the various sports that I coached. And I tried to instill in my athletes that know the rules, be in excellent condition, and win or lose, hold up your head. And it paid off. Cross country was my favorite sport, of course, and the kids like to run long distance. And I don't know if it's because of they're Indians or not, but I know I'm an Indian and I hate running long distance. So that couldn't have been the reason. Some of the things that I used to do was crazy, but once in a while, my kids would get bored. One time, the government gave us a slug of canvas overshoes. So I said, how can I use those, I wonder? I gave them all to my cross-country team and told them to run 5 miles. After a while, a few weeks, they said, hey, coach, those help. I used to take them out to a hill called Halver Hill in Flanders. It's about like the 6th Street up by Catholic Church here in town. It's about steep as that, and I used to make them run up and down that hill a couple times. And that really helped in our workouts. There's some of the dumb things I used to do. In 1966, the Flanders Indian School won the State A cross-country championship, and the McIntosh High School won the Class B championship. And guess who was the coach of McIntosh? My brother Richard. So what do we get? We get the Oddity of the Year award. I thought that was pretty cool. In 1962, like the thing said on the screen there, I took 7 boys to the state track meet in Watertown. Friday was the preliminaries, and it rained so hard, like it did just the other night, that they canceled the preliminaries. And we just went right directly into the finals the next day. And sure enough, somehow, they won the track championship, which was very neat for me. I coached basketball for a few years, had some good teams, not so good teams. And during one season, 1978-79 season, I believe it was, my son Stuart was a coach. And guess who assisted him? Yours truly. I had a real good team that year. After winning the state cross-country championship several times, a gentleman in Flanders by the name of Doug Rosheim owned a cafe, and he'd always invite my team and myself for Sunday dinner. So we did that for about 7 years. And I thought that was real nice. We had several, my kids were so organized. We'd go to a cafe and eat, And when we were done, the waitresses come back and everything was neatly piled. Forks, knives, dishes, garbage in one spot. They were real organized. So I would like to thank the committee, my family for putting up with me, and thanks for the honor.